Hey guys, welcome back to Abide. Thanks for joining me again. It's been, I believe, about a month, probably more, since my last recording, and today I am finally back. There are some updates that I want to share and a message that I think is really important and very encouraging at the end of this episode. So, to start off, Dad has now passed away. It's a little over a month now since it happened. Dad passed away August 20th. We had his service. I took my time away because I really needed it. This podcast for me is a genuine expression of what God is doing in my life. And I think it's really healthy to really take time with each chapter of our life and not to rush it. And I never want to do this podcast out of a performance perspective. My goal will always be to be genuine and share my genuine faith and share my stories as authentically as possible. And I really needed that time away to process, to grieve, and for God to build me up again in encouragement. About 2 weeks ago, I'm kind of lost on time, on my timeline. It may be a week, actually. Yep, a week ago. My dog passed away. We had to put him down, and that threw me for a loop as well, because this dog was so special to me. He had gotten sick when he was about 5 months old, and I'll probably share that story on a different episode for those of you who don't know that story. I really relied on God in that time because it was a time of testing and trial for me, definitely. He got really sick. We didn't have answers. If you've ever cared for any being, whether it's an animal or a human being, and they are right between life and death, and you are doing everything you can to take them to their appointments, to give them their medication, to support them, to be with them, that takes a huge toll physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, regardless of if it's a human or an animal. For me, I take animal ownership very seriously. These beings depend on us, and the way I see it is I see Jesus so much through the creation of dogs, cats as well, but dogs specifically. I can see his hand, I can see his creativity, I can see his nature in the way that he created a dog. What I mean by that is the unconditional love, the type of love that a dog gives you is a glimpse and an expression of God himself. They just provide nonstop support. There's a connection. There's a true relationship there. And I see God's creativity in making this creature and making this being who is constantly your cheerleader, who's constantly happy to see you, who you can create a bond with. Their innocence, I take that very seriously. My dog's care is a top priority for me. Why? Because they depend on me. I see Jesus giving us these animals to care for them. It's a reflection of love, to care for a creature, to care for something that God created, to nurture them, to care for their every need, whether it's physical or emotional. To me, I see the representation that God intended in creating these these little beings. And this dog, I fought hard for, because he got sick. We didn't have answers for what felt like an eternity. I think the whole ordeal lasted a few months, but he was like very, very sick at one point and almost died. I'll spare the details and share that in a different episode, but he made it through that, and I heavily relied on God for that. This dog just like was such a gift, because he came into my life when my dad was sick. He brought so much joy. I really believe like he was an honest gift from God. And his life was short, and he got sick again, and he just recently passed. And that, after my dad's passing, so close, threw me for a loop, because when dad passed, I was sad, obviously. Your father just passed away. Of course I was sad. Of course I was grieving. But with dad, I understand that dad is in heaven with Jesus. Dad is still living. It just looks different now. And so I have a peace in that. I have comfort in that. Of course, I miss my dad, but my mind and spirit completely understand, and I can put that in a box and say, in a box of understanding, and say, dad is more than fine right now. I'm going to see him one day. I'm sure he's living things and experiencing things that like I'm going to experience one day. And until that day comes, it brings actual joy to my heart to imagine what my dad could be experiencing right now. Because yes, he's not here in the flesh anymore, but I know my faith tells me that he still lives. He's in heaven with Jesus, and he's experiencing things. He has won the prize. He is now with Jesus. That's the goal. So I had kind of gone through the waves, or the different parts of losing someone. And I had come to a place of peace with dad's passing. Even comfort, even joy, even celebration that dad is now completely free. And I'm happy for him. And then this happens with my dog. And this was so sudden and unexpected that knocked me down. I was not prepared for that. It happened within hours, and that really wrecked me. And so I can say that I was knocked down. I was so sad and confused, frustrated, heartbroken. And I think I've realized that part of that is because I understand that a human being is a child of God. I understand that dad has won the prize, and so dad is okay. And that brings me so much joy. But when it comes to a dog, what do I do with that? This was a being who brought so much joy, so much happiness, and from one day to the next, he's gone. My mind couldn't wrap around the understanding of his spirit or his being, who he was, my dog, being so full of life. He brought so much joy to our family daily, was now gone. I couldn't wrap my head around that. And I think that anybody who has experienced an unexpected loss understands that. With dad, we were prepared. With dad, I understood. I got it. Dad lived a full life. Dad was sick, but now dad is in heaven, experiencing freedom and joy and so much more. And what do I do with my dog, who was here one minute and gone the next? So full of life. I had to deal with the guilt of having to make that choice to put him down. Although I know it was the right decision, the vet told us it was just too much. And I know that it hurts them as well to do that to a dog that is so young and vibrant, but his body just didn't match. So this is my update. That threw me for a loop. I had got through Dad's passing. I went through the different phases of grieving Dad, and I had gotten to a place of like acceptance, joy, celebration for Dad, and then the loss of my dog. And I was just like, now what? What does this mean? What do I do with this? This seems like a bit too much. God, do you see? I can't handle this. It felt like another blow, and I was just distraught, honestly. And I took my time to grieve, took my time to cry, and I still get choked up about it. But these are the stages of grief. This is loss. This is what loss looks like, regardless of who you've lost. This is loss. The heartbreak, the questions, the what now, the what do I do with all of this? I was going through the motions. I'd gone through the heartbreak, and although my heart isn't healed, I was ready to move on. My mind was ready to move on. I was done being sad. I'm tired of feeling like this. I was stuck in my bed. I felt stuck spiritually and emotionally exhausted. I just didn't want to deal with it anymore. And I had not worked out in probably like 2 months. And that's a normal for me to work out at least 4 times a week. But with Dad getting sick, with Dad being on hospice, with Dad passing away, and then his service, that was the last thing on my mind. I was taking care of myself. I was giving myself a lot of grace and allowing myself to just be. I took off any pressure of feeling like I needed to perform in whatever way, be there in whatever capacity, even for my family. I allowed myself the grace to grieve and to take it slow. Why? Because I know Jesus would never rush me through grief. I know that my God is a good God, and he was telling me that it's okay to seek comfort in him. It's okay to slow down. It's okay to grieve. God never rushes us through our emotions. He created them. He understands them. And he's a good God. And knowing that, I allowed myself the space to do that. And I kept telling myself, I felt myself kind of coming out of that and thinking like, okay, I kind of feel like I'm almost there to start getting back to my routines, the routines that help me to feel good physically, mentally, and emotionally. And for me, working out does that. For me, it helps a ton for my mood, my mental clarity, and also just the physical activity helps me as well. It just helps me to release stress, and I've just found that exercising weekly just is a huge benefit in my life. And I felt myself starting to desire that. I knew I wasn't completely there yet, but I can sense that I was almost there. And again, I gave myself lots of grace. I knew that when I was ready, I'd be ready. And 2 days ago, I finally felt ready. I can't tell you why. I don't think it really matters. But I got up, put my workout clothes on, and I finally worked out, and I felt amazing. My mood had shifted. I was mentally there, ready, prepared, excited, confident, and I did. And for me, working out, I tend to get a lot of I feel like God talks to me when I'm working out. It feels like a whole body thing that he allows me to have. It's the physical release of stress and whatever's built up in my body, but also spiritually he speaks to me. I'm able to just release so much through working out. And as I felt so empowered. I felt like I'm back. I'm ready to live again. I'd taken my pause, I'd taken my break, I'd given myself grace for as long as I needed. There was no rush. I woke up ready and I went with it, and it felt amazing. And I started to think about unmet expectations, because leading from my dad's passing, leading from my dog's passing, I was understanding what Jesus was speaking to me. The morning after my dog passed, I felt the Holy Spirit tell me, I'm creating space in your life. And I understood that he had allowed space in my life that was previously occupied, mentally, physical. It's a weight that we carry. It's an invisible weight that I realized that we carry, that I carried through my dad being sick, the constant worry of what's the next test, what is this, what do the results mean, what's going to happen now, and then dad going on hospice. Okay, now dad's on seeing all that, it takes a toll on you. It takes a toll on your mental health, it takes a toll on your emotions, and of course physically it takes a toll on you. Stress takes a toll on you. And so I understood that God bringing my dad home was freedom for dad, but it was also freedom for my family and I. And I don't mean that to sound insensitive, so I want to explain what that means. Again, going back to that weight. Jesus knows how things affect us. He knows all things. And he knew that taking dad home, dad was going to rest, experience beauty, freedom. He was welcoming him home. And although we were going to miss dad, and although we were going to grieve the fact that he's no longer here, we were also able to celebrate and be proud and be excited for dad and what he's now experiencing. He's no longer bound by his flesh here. And for us, that meant no more worry. All that weight, the mental weight, the emotional weight, the physical stress, all the invisible things that take a toll. Once they're lifted, at least for me, I was able to understand what I had been carrying. When it comes to my dog, he was never the same. After the first time that he almost passed, he was never the same. The weight of seeing his body, the toll that it had taken on him. Although young, his body had been ravaged by the sickness that he got. He was never the same. That took a toll. I read a quote. I've seen it a few times, but it said, if love could have kept you here, you would have lived forever. But unfortunately, we don't live forever. I guess it's not really unfortunate because we get to go with Jesus. But our love doesn't keep our loved ones here. And I've come to a place of understanding that Jesus knows best. Jesus knows what he's doing. He's a good God. God is a good Father, and he provides what we need in all ways. And although I would have loved for my dad to still be here, for my dog to still be here, I understand now. Of course, I have to go through my grief, my questioning, my why, my heartbreak. But each day, the clouds began to open more and more, and my understanding, I was more open to what Jesus wanted to tell me. He allowed me this space. He never rushed me. I never felt rushed. But as it began to open and my understanding began to open, I realized the mercy in bringing them home. I can't say biblically that I know that a dog goes to heaven. I don't know. I really don't. I'd like to believe that. I'd like to believe that if God created all these things, that there would be a version of this in his heaven. But I don't know. I want to believe that animals and creatures are there. Regardless, they're free of their suffering. And I'm able to see the grace of God in that the weight of that has now been lifted off of my everyday. The constant stress, the invisible weight that came with sickness for both of them. And I thought about the unmet expectations. I felt Jesus telling me or speaking to me about that. I felt him show me, and not with his finger pointed at me as like, I'm teaching you a lesson and listen here. It was the way Jesus speaks is always full of grace, full of kindness and patience and love. But he did show me about expectations that I wasn't aware that I had. I have an expectation that, or I had expectations that I wasn't aware I had until there was no possibility of them being met, until I was confronted with the fact that those will never come to pass. When we come to a place in our life where something we probably just assumed would happen doesn't, that's where we get to meet our unsaid expectations, our unmet expectations. That's where we're confronted with those. And he began to speak to me about that, he revealed to me areas where I had expectations of him. He opened my eyes to the fact that I assumed and believed that a good God would do X, Y, and Z. Jesus, you're good. I believe you're good. And so you must know that this way is probably the best, right? Of course, I wasn't thinking that in the forefront of my mind. I wasn't telling him that, but my heart was. My beliefs were, my expectations were. And when they didn't come to pass, I was left with reality and met with the expectations that I had built. There's nothing wrong with expectations. But it opened my eyes to areas where I had come up with my own plan for my life and how it should go in all of the areas. I understood that I had placed ideas and plans that God never told me, like, this is my plan. But I had made them up. And then when something would go wrong, I would pray, which none of this is wrong. Please hear that. None of this is wrong. But my eyes were just open to where I had misplaced my expectation in front, as if it was God's plan. My dog being sick. Okay, Jesus, I was at his feet. Jesus, help me through this. I don't know what to do. I'm helping this dog. I'm sleeping with him every night, trying to keep him alive. We're spending so much money to help him to get better. Jesus, I need you. I relied so heavily. Dad, okay, we're going to do this test. Okay, Dad made it. Okay, so now this is the new benchmark. Okay, Dad made it. So many what ifs, so many things. And each time we would get through one thing, then it was something else and something else. And then when both of them passed, I was confronted with, what now? What does this mean? What do I do? I was confronted with asking myself and asking God, I don't know where to go. I don't know where to step, because honestly, I'm afraid. I'm afraid of certain outcomes now. I've felt the sting more times than I wanted to. Jesus, what do I do with this? I don't understand. And so I wanted to just kind of talk about unmet expectations in that way, and what that means, and how God wants to meet us in that. And I feel like, honestly, it's His grace, it's His love and His mercy to be patient and loving, to express these things, to open our eyes to areas that we have these expectations of Him. Jesus, I imagine a good God would show up like this in this circumstance. I imagine, because you're a good God, you're going to answer this prayer in this way. God, I hear that you're good, and I want to believe that you're good. So I want to trust you. Can you do this? Can you make this happen? Whatever it is. That's not a bad thing. But I feel like it's an opportunity to be aware of our expectations and what God is actually speaking to us in the midst of those circumstances. So today I was journaling. I hadn't been journaling in quite a while, and today I was journaling, and I don't know about you guys, but I've been really stressed. The weight of what's going on in the world is pretty heavy. And my body was feeling very, very stressed. I felt the weight. I felt just gross spiritually. I felt anything opposite of peace. And it was getting to me. I think that it's easy to see what's going on in the world and to hear all these different voices and opinions, and then to feel weighed down by it. And I understand that people will always have something to say. They'll always have their opinion. And people are always going to share that, but we need to be careful about what we're watching, what we're consuming, what we're listening to. And not to say that it's all bad, because God uses us as messengers. But what I want to say is I want to remind you to be careful if you're consuming things that are affecting you negatively. And sometimes we're not even aware of it. So if you hear that and think, nope, I'm fine. Are you? Take some time. Take some time and go back a bit. See what you're watching. What are you following? Are you on some sort of hamster wheel? Are you following the conspiracy theories? Are you so invested on the next video or the next idea? Are you listening to people's opinions about what us as believers should be doing, should be believing, how we should be acting? Because if so, I would encourage you to go to God Himself. And the reason I say that is because I felt that recently, and I finally got fed up, and I thought, you know what, Jesus? If you want to tell me something, you can tell me yourself. If you want to reveal something to me, we have a relationship. You can reveal it to me. I don't have to go somewhere else. And that's the beauty of relationship with Jesus. We don't need a middleman. We have access. It's not to say that we don't need anybody in our life, because we do. We need wise people around us. people who believe in God, people who believe in the Bible, people who live their life according to that. Not perfectly, but who strive to live the life that God has called them to live. But if we're seeking God, just as much as we're seeking the next story or the next thing, He's going to be faithful to speak to us because He desires relationship with us. And so today, as I was journaling, I felt Him give me a message. And as I was writing down what I felt He was leading me to, I realized that He did exactly that. 2 days ago, I told Him, Jesus, if you want me to know something, you can tell me yourself. And I'm not saying anything against like people who get words, because I get words, and people who share them. I'm not saying anything about that. That I don't have anything negative to say about that, and I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. But what I am saying is, if someone says, this is a word I got, we always have to, as believers, go straight to God. Jesus, did you say this? Is this what you want me to hear? Is this what you want me to know? Because not all of us are called to every single thing. God uses us all differently, and our assignments are all different. And so because someone got a message or a word doesn't mean that that applies to us. And God Himself will speak to us. And so I wanted to share that today as I went into my quiet time. I got this visual of myself, and I looked like a little girl. And I was under what looked like an awning. And I felt Jesus say, be still. And with that, I got that vision that I just explained to you. And I was looking up, and I felt so much peace and security under that awning. The awning being the representation He was showing me. If you stay right here with me, you're covered. I felt so much security and safety. I felt the warmness and the nearness of Him. It felt so good. It felt safe. It felt peaceful. I knew I was okay right there with Him. I knew that He was my shelter, and that's what He was having me understand. If you just stay right here with me, I'll shield you. Be still. You're safe right here with me. And then He showed me this vision that I had gotten years ago, at least 8 years ago. This vision means a lot to me. And it was a vision that I had shared with my dad, because it was a vision that the Holy Spirit had given me for my dad more than 8 years ago. God brought that back to mind, and as He brought it back to my mind, I almost wanted to reject it because I wasn't expecting that. That vision means something to me. He shared a lot to me in that vision. And so as He brought that back to my mind, I wanted to reject it because I wasn't prepared, but I didn't. And I sat and I watched what He showed me. And I knew that He was trying to tell me something with it. And so I even wrote down, Jesus, I know you're trying to show me something with this vision. And I know that you're going to communicate to me what you want me to understand. And I did. In that vision, it was a big open field lined with tall trees. I was here. It wasn't me, but I was experiencing the vision in this way. It was long grass, big open field lined with long green tall trees out in the distance. Under the shaded tree was my dad and Jesus. And it felt like there was a friendship. And they were talking back and forth. And my dad was asking him questions. And Jesus was responding back to my dad. I'll stop there because I don't need to tell the rest, but that vision was impactful for me in many ways, and for my dad when I got to share with him the vision that I got. It changed my dad's life, that vision. It helped my dad to know beyond a shadow of a doubt that Jesus heard him and he was with him at that very moment. Although my dad was alone and had a conversation with Jesus, the one that God showed me he had, my dad knew and understood that there was no other way but by the Holy Spirit that I would have known about that conversation, because my dad had had that conversation with Jesus in private. But by the Holy Spirit, he showed me that conversation so that I can share it with Dad, and Dad would understand that Jesus is with him, that he's loved. That was more than 8 years ago, and I just recently realized, put 2 and 2 together, that story is very similar to the story of, I believe it's, is it Nathaniel? I think it's Nathaniel under the fig tree, where he's talking to God and he's telling him, like, do you see me? Do you not see me? And then later Jesus tells him, I saw you under the fig tree. And he was like, oh my gosh, I was by myself. There's no way. I didn't even know about that passage until recently. And then when I saw, I think I saw a video about it, and I thought, I was mind blown. That's exactly what Jesus did to my dad in that moment, where my dad was talking to Jesus alone in his room. And Jesus used me to tell my dad, to show him I was there in that moment. I heard you. Not only that, but I'm answering the questions that you were asking me. And so that's the vision that God brought up to my mind today that I wasn't prepared for. And I understood today that Jesus was telling me to be still, to not worry about what's going on in the world, to not worry about anything. He reminded me and told me this, and it was for myself, but it was also for us as believers. I felt him say, oh, what you would get if you would just sit with me. And I felt like it was an invitation. I felt like he was trying to say to us, if you would just sit, how much you would get, how much beauty you would experience. There's so much that we don't even know we need, but God knows what we need. And that's what he was trying to get me to understand. If you would just sit with me, how much I would give to you, how much you would experience. The reason I feel that God showed me that vision again today was to bring it home. He was using that to remind me of, now that Dad is with Jesus, Dad is experiencing the prize. Dad has won the prize. He's living a life with God. He's living a life in heaven. He's very much alive. Although it looks different, he is very much alive. And that's what he was showing me. That Jesus is the prize. That's the whole point. Is to be in that moment, just like the visual. To be in that moment with Jesus, to be in his presence, to be with him. That's the whole point. So if you've been feeling way down too, if the state of things is weighing you down, stressing you out, causing you concern or worry, or stress in your life in general, for whatever reason, this is the reminder that I want to share with you. If we would only just sit with Him, oh, how much we would get. Oh, how much we would receive in His presence. To remind us to sit with Him and to be still. Not to watch all the videos, not to listen to all the different podcasts, not to listen to so much commentary. Just be still. Be under His covering. Sit with Him. He will be our refuge. He will be our shelter. He'll be so much more than we can imagine. So I just want to leave you with that and tell you thank you for being with me today. I'm sorry if this was long. I don't script anything. I just kind of do these as I feel led. But I hope that you're encouraged by this. I hope that you're reminded of God's goodness, of His mercy, and that you're encouraged to be still with Him. That you're reminded that right there in the moment, to quiet yourself, to find time with Jesus, that He will fill you up in every way that you need. Thank you for joining me today. I'll see you next time.